The United Kingdom is a highly developed social market economy. It's the sixth largest national economy in the world, measured by nominal gross domestic product, 10th largest by purchasing power parity, 24th highest by GDP per capita, constituting 3.3% of nominal world GDP. Recently, the International Monetary Fund has projected its worst performing economy in the world this year, even after a significant upgrade in its forecasts. According to the latest World Economic Outlook, UK's GDP contracted by 0.3% across 2023, half of 0.6% decline, the IMF forecast in January. Well, let's assess this and speak to somebody who is in the UK. He is a startup founder of the Wealth Hackers. Mr. Olubenga Onifade, it's been a while. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you. Good afternoon. How are you?
I'm very well. How are the strikes and all of that going on over there? How is it affecting economic activities? Tell us. Have they settled all of the strikes? Do we still have anyone on? Are we still getting any threats from the workers' union?
Yeah, unfortunately, it has been said that this is something we just have to bear with at the moment. But speaking of strikes, we had presently and it's been a while that it's been rearing its heads, which is the junior doctors. They are demanding for a 35% pay rise in their nominal pay, which, of course, they are saying this is just not even a pay rise. This is supposed to be in line with inflation. So yes, as a result of that, actually, I mean, how does it affect the ordinary human being out there, considering that health at the point of contact is supposed to be free, even though you pay for it in your tax. But however, I think as a result of that, roughly about 350,000 operations are being postponed or delayed just due to the junior doctor strike. So yes, overall, the whole economy general economy is being affected.
Mr. Benga, do we have you back?
I am here. Can you hear me?
Go ahead. I can hear you.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I was just talking about the junior doctor strike, which have demanded a 35% in their pay, which they said is that's supposed to be in line as a result of inflation. So they said they're not even requesting for a pay rise. That's just the normal pay they are demanding for. I think and that's after the nurses have demanded for a strike for a rise in their pay as well. They eventually settled for roughly a 5% pay rise. But as a result of the junior doctors, who are demanding for 35% pay rise, which, like I said again earlier on, which before we had a technical breakdown, the money's got to come from somewhere, right? We've got the health is actually free at the point of contact, and even though it is supposed to be free, like I said, even though you're paying for it, in the form of tax from your pay, but requesting for 35%, the government is saying, where is the money going to come from? We are battling a health crisis, but as a result of that, we had 350,000 operations or surgeries which has been delayed or postponed.
Wow.
Again, so even though the government is trying to battle the cost of living crisis at the moment, but on the other hand, we do have the odd pots of strikes, here and there, unfortunately.
That's a large number there waiting for operations, and all of this in standstill because of this crisis. High gas price and, of course, trade issues are also challenging the United Kingdom at the moment. What's the update around that?
That's a very difficult one, really, because I think the key major issue that I have actually been reading about as well, and I do actually allate to that same fact, is the fact that even though a majority tends not to agree.
Wow. What seems to be happening today?
This time 2022, inflation was about 6.5%. Sorry, in December, and it ran to the highest of 11%, and then it dipped in slightly to 10.4. So come February or March rather, we were expecting inflation to go to single digits of, say 9.4, 9.7, but instead it actually went further up. And, for the past 10 interest rate meetings, the central bank has actually been raising the interest rates. Again, speaking of deals, deals haven't actually been made generally with the major economies, and of course with Russia rearing its head. We're looking at high gas energy prices, even though gas is actually totally falling now to the lowest in many years, even up to a decade if you're going to look at the prices, but because they tend to buy in bulk. And of course, there's the Russian war, and of course these things are forward-looking. So we're looking at the gas which is already bought, and the results of Russian blockade, which of course there's been deals and there's sanctions impending, which you cannot deal with Russia or Ukraine. So gas and energy is actually a big contributory factor in all these things. And there are two ways to look at these things as well. So if you look at the central bank of in America, which is the most influential central bank in the world, which I think majority call the Fed, they are doing two things with Joe Biden. They're battling inflation at the same time looking at growth. But in the UK, as I think the whole world knew about, last year when UK had 3-4 prime ministers in a single year, and then Ofcom, Rishi Sunak. But he said his main goal is to target inflation. We had Boris Johnson, who was looking at, he got Brexit done. And of course, the next focus was to start looking at trade deals and get it as much done as possible. But that has to go to the back pedal right now. And, battling inflation is the key thing everyone is facing.
Interesting stuff. But the IMF is making it look more scary. On the sidelines of the World Bank meetings, they are saying that UK's economy might be one of the worst performing economies this year. With all of this we've identified, do you see that playing out, or you see a recovery one way or the other?
We are hoping there will be a form of recovery. The IMF haven't been wrong. Well, they have been wrong in the past, but right now with the situation is fairly grim, if I can say, in line with IMF. But if you look at data, presently the UK 100, which is the group of top 100 corporations in the United Kingdom, UK 100 index actually ran up to the highest in Europe this year. It actually touched all-time high. So that's not reflecting to the common man. But on the other hand, to the people out there, corporation taxes for companies have gone up. It's gone from 19 to 25%. What does that mean? It means, so companies are, unfortunately, they're going to have to pass this on. So it's kind of like a double-edged sword, really. So the government is, in a way, they are pushing back or pushing more taxations, but these corporations are pushing it back to the people. That's number one. Number two is the fact that Brexit has been done. Deals haven't actually been fully done. Again, on the other hand, so when you look at this, again, this is all allaying fears. And then again, during COVID, which is, we had the food price right now is gone up to about 19%, which is the highest it's been since 1977. And during COVID, most of these restaurants, a lot of them shut down, a lot of them went bust, and now some of them cannot even pay back the debts which they can, which they've accrued. And at the same time, with the government, bailing out a lot of people, so the government is looking for funds, trying to get back into the government coffers. And again, this, most of the things that contributed to this inflation or inflationary environment is the restaurants, the restaurants and the hospitality sector. That is actually feeling big pinch. So, and most people actually thought, okay, do you know what? There's a little bit of hope here. We can actually go out now. There's no more COVID. But they go out and they realize this price is actually just way too much to pay because there's not as many restaurants out there. And again, of course, when you look at the food economy, because food is the key thing, food and energy we all know about as a result of Russia. But when it comes to food, the two key things contributed to it. Number one, we've had bad harvest. The farmers they've had to, they can't pass it on. I think I don't know if you knew about it at some point. If you have so much egg, you're just a rich person. Eggs just gone up. The cost of fertilizer has gone up 1,000%. It's very difficult for farmers to pass this on. I think, and they had about 60 million worth just about in December of food harvest that had to go to waste. So bad weather, bad harvest. And again, most of this food, they've come from greenhouses, which use a lot of energy, and then from North Africa. But as a result of energy costs, we can't import these things. So it's a little bit of a chicken and egg situation. Like I said again, you can't import this food. There's bad harvest, and you haven't even got the employers to pay because most employees rather to pay because initially they came from Europe, and now there's so much pressure on the government to think, okay, how about you focus on food, food crisis, the same way you have been focusing on energy. I think there's a petition for the government to add, food workers to the people, in terms of the shortage skills, really, so they can get them more. Nigeria could be of interest, just not Europe alone. So in order to curb inflation, but like Rishi Sunak said, and based, in collaboration with the Office of National Budget Responsibility, they have actually Office of National Statistics rather. They have actually said the key thing to battle right now is inflation, but all these key factors they point to that.
So, in fact, a lot is happening in the UK, and I wonder where we'll get back to the pre-COVID levels, where we'll continue manufacturing and all of that. We get back to normal. And also, workers and civil servants, I think they're also having some issues in the UK. Can you bring us up to speed with this?
Of course, yes. So now if you think about it, inflation is, at the highest it's ever been. 40 years, we've been talking about that for God knows how many months right now. And then contributory factor was COVID levels, which was 2 years when, government was just printing.
Well, it's been a little challenging, but we'll still try to get Mr. Nifade back. To
Best you
wrap
can.
up.
What people stayed home, they got paid. But on the other hand, now you're looking at the future. We're here now. Okay, how do we get this money back? Now people are staying at home. People are not willing to go out there, and the people who are going out there are saying, basic economic really. If you are getting paid, £10,000 this year, for example, annually. If inflation has gone up by 10%, you expect a pay rise of more than 10%. So people are not getting that because, it's very difficult for corporations themselves who exist to make money for them to raise it's very difficult for them to raise the cost of production or goods by more than 10%. So again, they're going to have to cut costs. And looking at, forward looking, they are trying to encourage people to go to work. But people are thinking, I would not be able to go to work if I think I'm actually getting paid less. So people want, which is why, there's been strikes on all fronts, from the government officials to even the private people as well. And the fact that COVID changed a lot of things. Now, people are looking at things differently. It's very difficult. People are not willing to go to work. People rather want, the hybrid responsibility of working from home. There's some things you just cannot do from home. You've got to be out there, unfortunately. So how are they resolving that? Government is saying, I've had situations where, I've been to some schools and you get some teachers, schools actually been on strike. This is the first time I've heard of that in a very long while. Schools been on strike. You do have some teachers who say, for ethical reasons, they don't believe they should be going on strike. You should be able to do this thing as a labor of love. While some doctors have actually decided, not to join the picket line either. But again, on the other side, the government is saying, people should look into themselves and think, why are you in this job? But people say, I'm here, I'm leaving to work, not, I'm working to leave, not leaving to work, whichever way. So I think it's a very difficult scale to balance because the government on one hand wants to balance inflation, wants to look into people's mind and say, well, just think about what we're trying to do. Give us a year or two to get these things done. But at the same time, people are saying, but these things is, we are feeling the pain. And at the same time, inflation is not just something that, you just sweep under the carpet, like, famous economists say. It says, inflation takes years to deal with. And unfortunately, it will take years to deal with. But compared to the United States, which is one of the biggest trading partners of the United Kingdom, United States have had inflation ticking down now consistently, I think, for the past three readings. But meanwhile, on the other round in the UK, inflation has actually been ticking up. So which just creates more headache. You raise interest rates again for the 10th time. You raise interest rate, but what's going to happen then? the people going to complain when you raise interest rates because it's more money in their pockets. I've had situations where people are paying almost double in terms of their mortgage. And if they're paying double, then it's not worth them owning the properties. So we've got housing crisis, we've got wage crisis at the same time, which is all abound. So it's a very difficult one for the government. But at the same time, they're encouraging people across all grounds. But also, one of the key things is the fact that's contributing. So, the odd time when we had the dip in inflation reading was the fact that people are taking multiple jobs. And people are saying you can't even trust the data that's out there. But, it's always survival first. While for the government, it's all about the data. So we're not playing politics with this, but I think people are just looking at survivorship, and they're putting interest to the side, especially when it comes to the doctors, the lawyers, the doctors, the nurses, and also government is trying to put some regulations into preventing these people to be able to go on strike in the future. So, but I think they're going to have to get this done first, and then in the future, the power will come in.
I must thank you so much, Mr. Olugbenga Onifade. It's always interesting, educating, hearing from you issues surrounding the United Kingdom's economy, and you've done same today as usual. Thank you so much. Have a great weekend. Do manage yourself, as we are also trying to manage ourselves here in Nigeria.
Thanks for having me. Thank you.